Hey there everybody, it's your boy AJ up here at the top of the episode. I just wanted to put a quick little note in here. The following discussion that Richard and I have deals with some relatively heavy topics. We're talking about Revenge of the Nerds, and if you've seen that movie or even if you've just heard of it, you may know of a particular scene in the film in which essentially sexual assault is depicted as like a wacky 80s comedy hijink. Can you use that word as a singular? Look, we're respectful about it, and we have what I would call a pretty good and pretty important discussion about it. But it is in this episode, so if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, maybe skip this one, or skip it when we start talking about it. It's about halfway through the episode, so you can listen to it, and then maybe if you want to skip that part, it goes for about 20 minutes or so, I think. Anyway, I just want to put this at the top of the episode, just so everyone's got a fair warning. But other than that, it's a pretty good episode, so, enjoy.
Wave your hands if you're not with a man. Can I kick it?
Yes, you can! Hello, and welcome along to... What is this show? Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cold Pops podcast. My name is AJ. I'm joined here today by Richard.
How you doing?
Oh boy.
I like that. Hopefully this concludes our trilogy of talking about comedy, and begins with us singing.
Oh, good point. Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't realise we were recording.
I thought this was more our trilogy of comedies that are detrimental to society now. And looking back on them, they don't... Comedies... The conclusion to the comedies that haven't aged well trilogy.
On the Cult Pop Show podcast.
On the Cult Pop... Not in general. Like, they're not all one-related. Franchise. But that is what this show is. We talk about franchises every fortnight.
Film
and
franchises.
a month ago, we did the Hangover trilogy. And then after that, we did the 8 American Pie films. And now we've gone back even further in time to before Richard and I were even born. Richard or I were even born. I apologise. That was terrible of me. And this wonderful night in Auckland, New Zealand, where the country has got a cyclone. the entire country is falling apart. But right here, it's very hot. I mean, there are hints of a cyclone in our weather, but...
Well, it's very humid.
Yeah, that's true. It's very tropical.
Joe, what are you wearing tonight?
Nothing, almost. I'm not wearing a shirt, because we do these podcasts in this room that just gets real warm, and I was like, you know what? It's my damn house.
Not for very much longer.
No, we're going to be shifting the kind of setup. Not that it really matters to you as the listener, but we are going to be shifting the setup as I am jumping ship. I'm moving to where the cyclone is. I'm moving back to my hometown of Christchurch.
Not because of the cyclone.
Not because of the cyclone. But I'll be doing that within the next week. Our release schedule means there'll be a couple more podcasts that have us together in the same room. But
it'll be a lie.
It'll be a lie, don't believe it. But it's not going to sound any different, hopefully. We did the Ready Player One.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we did the Ready Player One podcast in 2 different cities, and that sounded fine. So.
Yep.
So anyway, today, as I said, we're talking about the Revenge of the Nerds series. And when I tell people that we're doing the Revenge of the Nerds series this fortnight, they go, oh, how many of them are there? 2? And I go, no. There are 4 Revenge of the Nerds series. They consist of 2 theatrical releases and 2 straight-to-DVD releases.
Straight to TV, I believe.
Straight to TV would be a more accurate way to put it, because they came out in the 90s, before DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first film that we watched was called Revenge of the Nerds. And it was released in 1984, directed by Jeff Cannu, and I'll stop you right there, Richard. It is the same Jeff Cannu that directed National Lampoon's Adam and Eve. That has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 70% critic score and 73% audience score.
Wow.
Now, what was it about, Richard? What was that movie about?
Basically, it's about this group of nerds, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been wronged. Mm-hmm. So they just take it lying down.
Okay. The entire quadrilogy is nerds lying on the ground for 2 hours.
No,
apiece.
these nerds are forced out of their living quarters by the jocks, and they have to take up residence in the gym. Mm-hmm. So, through a series of kind of different sort of forms of sexual assault and rape, hilarity ensues, and the nerds end up on top, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm sure they wouldn't agree, but it's a good way to put it. It's essentially like your 80s sex comedy, a little bit more civilized than Porky's, like a touch more civilized than Porky's, but not quite as civilized as something like American Pie, which felt like it had more of a through line. This was more 80s college hijinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hijinks, the
More
precursor to
more
antics.
Low jinks.
Yeah, low
right?
jinks, that's true. Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise.
You still have time.
Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise came out in 1987, and that was directed by Joe Roth. And I'll stop you right there, Richard. That is the same Joe Roth who directed Christmas with the Cranks. That has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 7% critic score and 35% audience score. So a significant drop. One of the lowest rated sequels I feel we've done critically. It's
the same fucking thing, but now they're on holiday.
Yeah,
and there's less rape and boobies and stuff.
Yeah. The Revenge of the Nerds 2. Okay, Revenge of the Nerds is a 70%. Revenge of the Nerds 2 is not 7%. It is not that much worse. But yeah, they go to, where do they go? Fort Lauderdale.
Fuck, I can't believe I remembered that.
And that's like a tropical paradise in Miami.
Yeah.
And it's just them there for whatever, like they're representing their frat house, which is Lambda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. There's jocks that don't like them.
Yeah, but by the end of it, the sort of meathead jock is converted, and he helps out the nerds.
Yeah,
his name's Ogre.
Yeah, that's true. Then Revenge of the Nerds 3, The Next Generation, came straight to TV in 1992, and that was directed by Roland Mesa, and that is literally the only film he ever directed. Which, I mean, probably isn't much of a surprise with these straight to TV.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Did it direct any TV shows or anything like
that? Yeah, he directed a couple like Tales from the Crypt or something like that.
Right.
That has it doesn't have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but it does have an audience score of 22%. So it's still a steady decline from the audience score of 73% with the first film. And what is The Next Generation about?
Well, our hero Lewis Skolnick, who I haven't mentioned yet, he's put his nerd days behind him, and now he's like a cool dude. He's got a ponytail, and he's married to the woman he raped in the first film, and so essentially it's because he was so good at it that she...
We'll get into this further on.
This is relevant. But then the evil jock comes back into their lives. And he wants to get it on with his ex-girlfriend, who's now Lewis's wife. Mm-hmm. And then also like Lewis's nephew has a plot line, and that's like supposed to be the next generation, but then the movie's not about them.
This is one of the worst passing the torch sequels I've ever seen, because Robert Carradine, who plays Lewis Skolnick and also carried the series on his back.
That's why they call him Carradine.
Yeah.
Carrying these movies.
He, I feel like he might have kind of attachment issues with this series, and so when they said they were going to do a passing the torch Next Generation movie, he was like, "Sweet, well, Lewis will be in it, just for the audiences to have something familiar." But he is far and away still the main character of this film.
Yeah, and then they just ignore it, and the fourth one's just Lewis and his friends again.
Yep. So the fourth one is called Revenge of the Nerds 4, Nerds in Love, and that was released straight to TV in 1994. And that was directed by Steve Zacharias, who never directed anything else but is attached to the Revenge of the Nerds prequel film, of which I could find no other information about beyond this sentence.
Right.
So that has a 25% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Right. So that's a few more percent more than Revenge of the Nerds 3. but still a far cry from the original. And the fun
heights
fact,
of the original.
Fun fact about this film is that it was originally 3D and scratch and sniff.
Yeah.
So Fox distributed glasses and aromatic prompt cards that you could use while watching the movie. So what's this one about?
Well, so this is about the classic nerd character, Booger, who's been in all the films. Haven't mentioned him yet.
Played by Curtis Armstrong.
Who you might remember from American Pie, The Book of Love. And he is... he's a dirty nerd. He's the kind of seedy one who's always trying to get with the Moo Girls, which is like a sorority house. And he picks his nose a lot, hence why they call him Booger, but he's now getting married. And so all the nerds sort of come back together for that, and the family don't like that their daughter is getting married to a nerd. So they try everything they can to stop the wedding. This includes making up an illegitimate child and trying to set him up to cheat on her. But none of it works, of course, and they end up getting married, and Lewis is now impregnated his girlfriend, his wife, sorry. And I forgot to mention at the end of the third one, the jock that ruined his life in the first two films.
Although she's not in the second one.
Oh yeah. But the jock that was sort of the main antagonist of the first one reveals that he's actually a nerd deep down, and then in the fourth one he's there and he's like, let's be friends and show me VR.
Yeah,
and they kind of make sure to give everyone a happy ending by finding their mate.
Yeah, which is pretty standard trope of this kind of movie. What did you think of these?
And it doesn't have the nephew in it.
It does. He's in it.
Because I couldn't remember what he looked like.
His name is Howard. He's in it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not at all the main character.
No. How would you rank these films? Which one was your favourite? Which was your least favourite? Did you like them regardless of your ranking? Any thoughts, comments?
I enjoyed two the least.
Okay.
First one probably is the best. Mm-hmm. And
despite being the rapiest.
Yeah. And then I actually kind of enjoyed parts of Next Generation. I'd probably go 1, 3, 4, 2.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because
probably the first time I've ever ranked a quadrilogy like that.
I feel like when we were gearing up to do this, I said to you, I feel like 3 and 4 are going to be some of the worst movies we've ever watched on this podcast. Just because there was something about a dried up 80s franchise trying to move forward on its last legs, and
it's still got the original actors in it. I think helped it a lot. But it's weird because you think of something like American Pie, you take the sort of sexy banter out of it. It was sexy antics at the time, and Revenge of the Nerds. But even the second one, the sequels are a lot more family friendly. And it kind of works. It just goes to show you how little the first actually needed it.
That's a good point. Yeah, so as you sort of touched on there, this is an interesting situation where the original stars of the first film, they never really got famous enough. So the straight to TV cast is the same exact cast. If you're looking for any kind of discrepancies, the only thing I can really point to would be that Revenge of the Nerds 2, which you said is your least favourite. That's kind of the outlier when viewed with the rest of them, because 1, 3, and 4 all have Lewis and Betty together. Stan, who's the bad guy, the jock, he's in those 3, but not the second one. So several of the main characters do not appear.
Are we needing to do a Revenge of the Nerds Mashreki order?
Yeah. Mashreki order. I like it.
Yeah. Because I actually thought about this while I was watching it, and I was like, maybe don't watch the third one, but no, definitely skip the second one if you're going to watch them.
The second one feels like it's ignored by the others. By the two
is Nerds in Paradise canon? Hashtag get it.
Yeah, we don't know. Several of the characters do not appear, including Betty, Stan Gable, so that's the girlfriend and the bad guy, Takashi, who's one of the nerds, Ewan Jefferson, I don't remember that character.
What's Takashi's characterization?
He's Asian.
And what else? No, that's it. That's not us being racist, that's the film being racist.
This is also the last Nerds film to feature Poindexter, which is where that word comes from. Is the first Revenge of the Nerds film. One of the characters' last name is Poindexter.
Yeah. Well, it's not where the word comes from. It's an actual last name.
Right, but it's where we associate that last name with
being
nerdiness. Although he is shown, this is funny, Poindexter is shown on the DVD cover of the fourth film, but he is neither seen nor mentioned in it.
Weird. And also, Lewis's best friend is a huge part of the first two.
He's a huge part of the first one. I don't think I would go on record saying I interpreted Gilbert, who's Lewis's best friend, to be the main character in the first film.
No, I believe that he's a bit more of the...
Yeah.
They kind of made Lewis slightly more wacky.
Yeah.
They gave him the laugh.
Yeah. Try watch 4 movies where Robert Carradine, Lizzie McGuire's dad himself, does that.
Bill from Kill Bill's brother.
Yeah. What a strange way to describe one person, all those things.
Yeah. Did you find? I think it's the second one, maybe the third one, but it's like he forgot how to do it, and then he remembered for the third and fourth, because it's endearing in the first one, but it's so obnoxious in the second one.
Yeah, I agree. I was obnoxious for all of them really because
like I said, in the first one, it's kind of like a quirky character trait, and then he forgot how to do it endearingly,
right?
In the second one, and then it just became like, oh my god,
right.
Like, it wouldn't be like, and get louder, it would just be like, and then that was it.
And in the third one, it's a significant motif because in the third film, Lewis is actually trying to not be a nerd anymore in his adult years. So whenever he starts laughing like that, he cuts himself off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remembered that.
No. I was like, can I go into this now? And
sorry. Well, should we put a pin in that?
Right, okay.
So as I was saying, Gilbert, played by Anthony Edwards, and as well as the character Wormser, played by Andrew Cassis. There's Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise is the last film to feature those actors playing those characters. Edwards did not like the script, and he was very reluctant to reprise his role originally, which is why Gilbert has a very small portion of Revenge of the Nerds 2 for some reason. Like, it's weird because he has a broken leg, so he can't go with them, it's like it would make sense if he wasn't in the movie at all, and they're like, Gilbert, he's got a broken leg. Like, that's like a classic kind of dealing with an actor who didn't come back kind of thing, but he's in it enough for it to be like, why don't I just include him in the script?
And
just
then
because he didn't like
a different
it.
actor in the third one,
and then he turns up in the third one in a cameo played by a different actor, who's
just let himself go.
Yeah, which really is just kind of like, just don't write him into it. So because Gilbert has a broken leg in Revenge of the Nerds 2, I mean, the Edwards got to film all his material in one session, and he spent a few days filming the scene where he appears in Lewis's dream on the beach. And on the 30th anniversary of the original film in 2014, Julia Montgomery, who plays Betty, told that she was originally to have a part in Nerds 2, but eventually turned it down. This is really interesting, actually, after learning that her only scene would involve Betty cheating on Lewis in a hotel room with another jock. Montgomery felt that after falling in love with Lewis towards the end of Nerds, it wasn't right that she would cheat on him with someone who is just like Stan Gable. Isn't that a fascinating insight into that actress's
I love the
interpretation of that character.
Yeah. I love that she turned it down, but I mean, how did they end up together?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We will get into that.
The setup for Revenge of the Nerds 3 is very similar to the setup for it's more so The Last Jedi, but the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. It's like, here's the new characters. They're just like the other ones. Now let's go. Great, like it wants to be a passing the torch film, but the new characters are forced to grab the torch from the other ones. Then it's a reluctant torch handing over because the hero from our Luke Skywalker, our Lewis Skullner, our LS character, has quarantined himself and is denying the fact that he was ever this legend that people still tell stories about.
So it is they should have called it The Last Nerd.
Yeah.
Even though that's not at all what the movie's about. It's about the opposite.
Yeah, and then at the end when Stan Gable's like talking to him, he could be like, everything you just said was wrong. I don't know. That was a weird reference to make.
That's okay.
I don't know.
He probably says that in the movie.
Yeah.
I got hang up with we'll get to the sexual misconduct in just a second.
Yeah.
But
How upset are you?
About the sexual misconduct.
No, about what you're about to say.
I'm about to cry. I'm on the verge of
Right.
tears.
Do you want a donut?
Do you have donuts? I don't know if this will solve it, but I'd love a donut. So we've graduated from drinking soda on the podcast to eating donuts.
It's our last time together.
Well,
Yeah, those gross, like, I don't know if you get these in America or whatever, but like the real shitty discount, like from the supermarket, they're they're not glaze, they're iced donuts, but because it's like 150% humidity in the air right now, they're just like sweaty, sticky, delicious donuts.
like me, right now. So here's
Instead of having a hole in the middle, it's a metaphorical one.
while we're
very
on the
inside.
subject of things that kind of exist in America but are probably kind of different in New Zealand, I've got a question for our American listeners. Do these like social cliques? That's what they're called, right? Would you say clique or clique? I've heard it pronounced different ways.
You
before.
click, yeah.
Do these cliques even exist in college? Because I can't speak for America, but I know that if anyone in like tertiary education in New Zealand thought being a jock was a bit like important and that bullying nerds was cool, like everyone would just think they're a fucking loser. like you know what I mean? Like these cliques definitely exist in high school, but my experience from graduating high school and moving into Polytech, because I didn't go to university, was...
So you don't know, do you?
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. Was that, like, if people still treated you bad because you're different to them, they're the arsehole. Like, they're the... Because, and, like...
Based purely on, like, films I've seen, I think it's a fraternity thing.
Right.
Like, so those I mean, again, it's just why I'm getting off films. But, that it seems like each kind of fraternity or even sorority has their kind of clique or their sort of their type, and they tend to stick to those. So I think that exacerbates it a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I have seen it with frats. This is just so juvenile.
Yeah, well, the fact is, in Revenge of the Nerds, it's not even just at college. It's like, you know, they go to court and the judge is like, I'm not going to fucking let a nerd walk free out of my courtroom.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally accurate, Richard. And I started to get that. It's so fake, and that's it.
Just leave this in. We took a little break just to make
No,
sure we're
I'm
still
not
recording.
keeping it in.
Keep this in.
Yeah. So as the series progresses, the nerd prejudice is
You fucking keep that
flanderized.
in.
Huh?
Said you better fucking keep that in.
Now I have to. It's flanderized to the point of being a tongue-in-cheek parallel or parody of racism or other forms of prejudice. Like, and is that bad, or is it just the same as like X-Men or Zootopia?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, I don't know, because it doesn't feel satirical. It feels like someone, I don't know.
It feels like this is a very deeply personal story from, assuming, Robert Carradine, and he was like
Wouldn't it be for, I don't know, whatever that guy that directed
National
the Lizzie
Lampoon's
McGuire movie?
I don't no, yeah, it does feel like there is a slight. I don't. It's just hard when they're all white men, you know.
Well, one of them's black and gay.
That's a good point. And before we start trashing on this movie for what it's terrible with, I do want to say that despite the fact that there's a lot of stereotyped characters, like as you said, Lamar is a black gay dude, and he's in all four actually, I think.
Small cameo in the third.
Yeah. Despite the fact that he is presented as very flamboyant and like feminine and stuff like that, like they still accept him. Like it reminds me of when the South Park guys put Timmy in the show, who's the kid in the wheelchair, who's only says Timmy, and they caught so much flack for like, you know, having a disabled student be like a butt of a joke, essentially. But they were like, no, everyone's a butt of a joke, and we just treat Timmy's just treated by the other students like another student.
Yeah, it's interesting because in a film that every character is a stereotype, but the nerds don't want to be, well, they have their identity crises and don't want to be nerds, I think, but and the jocks are all nerds deep down, and and if you the prom queen, if you sexually assault her good enough, I was going to say rape, but I feel like, even though I've said it a few times already, I was like, that instance would be too harsh. If you sexually assault her good enough, you can turn her, kind of thing. But Lamar is the most sure of himself character in the entire
and
series.
there's a scene when they pitch to, so they have to, I don't know how it works.
Perfect 2.
They pitch Perfect 3, actually.
Yeah. To the streets.
They pitch Perfect 3 to the streets. They have to basically go to the national figurehead of Lambda, Lambda, Lambda and say, can
the
we...
national Lambda, 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 Adam and Eve.
What?
National Lambda.
Oh, right. They have to go.
Sorry.
They have to go to him and say, "Hey, we want to open up a chapter of your fraternity at Adams College," and the joke is that all of Lambda Lambda Lambda's chapters are like black. I think was the joke there. Like,
yeah,
they're all they're African American predominant chapter fraternity, and Lamar points out that they want to start a chapter of Lambda 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 where they will not discriminate against anyone of different color, creed, or sexual orientation. And it's not even really treated as a joke. Like, the joke is like, of course he would be the one to say that, but no one rolls their eyes and goes, "Oh, here we go, the gay guy's trying to get taught," Like, it's actually, I don't know, it's for everything this movie gets wrong, which we will be talking about in just a second. Like, that was an oddly
waiting for it, folks.
Sincere moment narratively.
Yeah. No, Lamar is a better character than he should be.
Yeah.
Like, it's in an 80s film that uses rape as a comedic plot point, the very flamboyant homosexual African American character is like one of the least stereotypical people in the movie. AJ, have another donut. I keep eating them.
No, I don't want to eat into the microphone.
Well,
and we're recording to one output again, so AJ, I don't want to. I'm not going to be able to cut you out.
It's just fucking.
Look, I'm touched.
$4.
I'm touched, but I don't know why you thought it was a good idea to bring
I thought it was
sticky
funny,
donuts
AJ.
to eat on. Well, like, the sodas worked because you can hide that you're drinking them.
Ugh.
So, okay, we've been. If you haven't seen Revenge of the Nerds, then this is going to be a very tumultuous podcast to listen to up to this point, I think. But we are going to talk about it.
Yeah, you don't know the details.
Yeah. We are going to talk about the dodgy. You all right?
Yeah.
You fell off your chair.
Yeah.
Because I was so shocked. We are going to talk about this now. So, the original film, as we discussed...
If you're not a fan of rape, stop listening.
True, that's a good... I thought you were making just a pointless bad taste joke. But no, this trigger warning, I guess, for if this stuff upsets you, we're going to be taking it pretty seriously. We're not going to be joking about it.
I'll try to. Trigger warning, I'm taking my keys out of my pocket. I know how when I do that.
Like people don't mind the rape stuff, but as soon as you take the keys out.
Audio files are like...
Yeah. So as we discussed last week in the American Pie episode, before we even knew that we'd be getting Revenge of the Nerds, Rotten, as I've been hilariously calling it.
Return of the Ned Eye.
That's great, yeah. So the original film specifically, not so much the sequels.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not...
The sequels... had so little that it's kind of jarring.
Yeah. So the original film is rather infamous for perpetuating rape culture with the nerds' wacky antics, or hijinks, as we said, the precursor to antics. Yeah. Like going on panty raids, installing cameras in the sorority showers so they can spend all day perving on naked women.
And like all day, they stay up all night.
Yeah.
And he pours beer into his cornflakes.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was for the stereotype of the time, that seemed like a weird thing.
very frat boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some weird, like, I wouldn't have called that a nerd type moments. And same with just to go on this little tangent, the character of Ogre, who's a jock originally, I don't think jocks would be friends with that guy. He was gross. He was like a big, dirty man.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of jokes.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
guess
get
that's
the the three popped collars kind of
Yeah.
frat boys. Yeah.
So, and then of course there is a particular scene that you'll read about if you type in Revenge of the Nerds. I guarantee this will be on the first page of Google. People
There is
talking
another
about
one you missed as well before you get
yeah.
to the Big Daddy. Is that because they've installed the cameras, they're doing like a Greek Olympiad, much like you might remember from American Pie Beta House, and one of the things they have to do is raise money for it, and so the jocks open a kissing booth, which leads into what you're about to say. But the nerds raise money by selling cream pies. They're selling like actual pie tins with just cream on top of them.
Yeah, they call it a pie, but it's not.
Yeah, and so they make heaps of money, and the jocks go over to find out why it's making so much money. And Ogre eats one of the pies and reveals that underneath is a full frontal nude shot of, and it is of Betty. Isn't it?
I think it's of Betty. Yeah.
Of the love interest. Of the lead jock's girlfriend, in fact. And so, obviously that's a sex crime.
So it is important to note, and this isn't an excuse, it's more just a point of interest, that all the things we've mentioned so far wouldn't be out of place in an American Pie movie. So we haven't gone back in time quite enough yet. There is a scene in Bandcamp where he sets up, it's one of the main plot points that he sets up cameras in the girls' showers, things like that. But this scene you wouldn't find in American Pie, I don't think. And yeah, as I said, all across the internet people are writing, well, when like kind of like the public consciousness shifted into like this
Rape is bad.
Yeah. Well, understanding how we used to represent
different
these
levels
things.
of sexual assault.
Yeah. People started to bring this scene up, and another scene from 16 Candles that I don't quite remember apparently is similar. So
deception.
Yeah. So
It follows directly on from the kissing booth storyline.
Yep. So Robert Carradine's Lewis Skolnick dresses up in a similar outfit to Stan Gable, the jock antagonist, and who is also Betty's current boyfriend. They're wearing the same fancy dress, like one of them's like Darth Vader or something. Yeah. They're dressed up so you can't see his face.
Big cape and mask.
Yeah. And then Lewis essentially tricks Betty into thinking that he is Stan before proceeding to perform oral sex on her. Afterwards, Betty discovers it's actually Lewis, but because he was so good at it, she isn't mad about being raped or sexually assaulted. I'm not sure what the lines are with... because
it's rape through deception.
Yeah,
it's a crime.
Yeah, of course.
So it's straight up, we'll put you in jail.
Yeah. And instead, she falls in love with him. And as we said in the following films, the two get married and eventually have a kid together. And whenever Betty is on screen, she is depicted as being infatuated with Lewis.
Yeah, does that make it better or worse?
I don't know.
Like the fact that it's like, well, they actually ended up being perfect for each other. I mean, obviously, the initial act is so debaucherous.
You could change what he does to make her fall for him, and it would probably be...
Yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't a sexual thing, but like a more romantic gesture, like that was you saying all those things kind of thing.
What about this?
Because that moment exists in...
What about this? What if you establish throughout the first part of the movie that Stan has been pressuring Betty into doing some kind of sex act that she doesn't want to do?
Anal.
Let's say anal. And then he keeps wearing her down. So you're actually creating like a dislikable character fully in Stan, like on top of the fact that he's also just the bad guy and mean to nerds. And then when Betty thinks that Lewis is Stan, and she's like, all right, we can finally do it if you're not going to leave me alone. And he retracts and goes, no, if you don't want to do it, let's not. Imagine that. And that's how she finds out who he is. I'm not saying they have sex at all.
I'm regretting saying anal because, like, the fact of that being this big emotional plot point kind of feels a bit weird.
I'm kind of into that idea. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
The more debaucherous the act that she doesn't want to do that he's
I feel like... no, do you know what the line would be?
It would be.
You know that thing you always wanted to do? Like, you can do it if you want.
Yeah.
and we'll never know what it was, but it's obvious that they know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's so basically the way it's revealed is he comes up because they actually. Do they have full penetrative sex? Or
the articles say they do. That is not at all how I interpreted the scene because he goes down on her, and then when we cut back to them, he comes back up again.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's better or worse or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's unclear what they do, but basically he comes back up, and they're in like a dark room.
Yeah.
And he lifts up his mask and goes. I'm not doing it right. I can't. I've got a sore throat, and so I don't want to do it. But and then she freaks out, and then basically says, "Wait a minute, are all nerds that good?"
She doesn't even freak out. She just goes, "You're that nerd," and he's like,
Well, jocks only think about sports. The only thing nerds think about is sex. So that's why we're good at it.
Yeah.
And it's such
presumably this is him losing his virginity.
Who knows, man? It's such a
Yeah, and then it ends with her being like, "Oh, Jesus, I'm in love with a nerd."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just,
he just
sexually assaulted you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, feel free to chime in, listeners.
Yeah, we're pretty
open.
open-minded people. So you and I would say, are both pretty good at learning new opinions and feelings and being able to factor that into what we.
Yeah, unless they're about Interstellar or anything like that. But
yeah. Well, of course.
It's interesting because it's like the scene is so. The idea of the scene is so just wrong and wouldn't fly. And you said that you wouldn't find this in an American Pie film, but I actually feel like you probably would.
Right.
I feel like this wouldn't be out of place in an American Pie film. It might play out differently. I don't know if they'd do the her now being obsessed with him kind of thing, but the Stifler... Stifler walking in on a girl who's ready to have sex with a boyfriend, and he goes, "Oh, okay," and walks in on a girl tied up on all fours, going "Come and get me, daddy." And
he does bang Jim's grandma in the third film, so
yeah,
that's a similar situation.
Yeah, it's almost identical. And then she does become infatuated with him. So
although it's in the dark and he doesn't know it's her, so there's less. He thinks it's someone who's consenting.
Yeah.
It's these are complicated issues that we don't presume to know.
When we finished Revenge of the Nerds, the first thing I thought, and this is kind of and because these scenes. Okay, I'll start again. I saw Revenge of the Nerds years and years ago. It was on a channel here called C4. It was playing late one night. I remember it was one of those things. I was just flicking through the channels, and then I saw, I think it was the scene with the pies, and so, actually, it was earlier on. It was the We Got Bush scene when they've got the camera set up and they're all watching it, and a girl walks out of the shower, full frontal nudity, and they all proclaim, "We got Bush, we got Bush." So I watched it for because there's all the nudities in this 5-minute chunk.
Yeah.
So I watched it for a little bit, and so all I knew of Revenge of the Nerds is it's this insane start to finish just sex and nudity. But then the first thing I thought after watching the movie was because we kind of turned to each other and we're like, "What do you think?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's fine." And the first word that came to my head was inoffensive. I was like, yeah, it's just it's so take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And it's American Pie has these iconic moments and heartwarming characters, but in my mind, the first thing I was like, Revenge of the Nerds, I was like, no one's going to love it, but no one's really going to hate it. And then I remembered that there is this massively discussed scene. And I guess that kind of just goes to show that despite what we're saying about it, it's actually not the biggest part of the film, and it's not really even done in it's maybe more nowadays, but because of the sort of culture with the time and place, the time period we live in, and the social whatever. But I feel like at the time, or even watching it again in the 90s or something like that, you would watch that scene and be like, 5 minutes later, you'd be like, that was pretty much just He pretty much just raped her.
Oh, so you don't reckon? Because a lot of the articles I read were like, "This is illustration of the how times have changed." Because back in the 80s, we thought this was okay, but you're saying you reckon it wouldn't have taken long before they.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe not, but it's like it's nowadays you can see any like the lens with which we look through any and see any like sexual encounter in film is so different because it's all about, you know, now we have to look, we look at like how it's shot, how it's framed. You know, there's a huge thing about how it's explicit to see a girl enjoying sex. There was, I think, Blue Valentine with Ryan Gosling, yeah, and even Rachel Wood. There's a scene, I think it's even Rachel Wood, I can't remember, but there's a scene where he goes down on her, and the MPA, the censors in America, basically said you need to cut down just the shots of her face enjoying having an orgasm because that's explicit. But like, and, you know, they don't do that for a man,
Yeah.
but it's becomes, and it's always this thing of like female nudity is always sexy, male nudity is always funny.
Yeah.
But so nowadays when we watch a sex scene, we're like, oh, you know, what's her name is naked. Oh, fuck, what's her name? Dakota Johnson is naked throughout the whole movie, but Jamie Dornan has to get paid an extra $5 million to get his penis out, and he doesn't even do it. Whereas back then, you watch a sex scene, you're like, haha, you know, he got her. And then maybe like 5-10 years later, you're remembering the film, and you're like,
that can't be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did
Sorry
no, that's great. What I did notice though when comparing American Pie and Revenge of the Nerds is that they're actually very different in how they're problematic. Subtly, but different. So like sluttily. While American Pie very much portrayed a male gaze worldview and exaggerated toxic masculinity with sex-crazed dudes who are probably more akin to like the jock characters or the frat boy characters in the film. Like
there's a good, the American Pie is a good spectrum. And I think, and that kind of more accurately shows what we're talking about. That like, are these different cliques so defined? Because like, you have Oz at the start of the film, but like you have a spectrum of like Stifler through to Finch.
Yeah.
So it's like it goes like Finch and then maybe Jim, Kevin, Oz, Stifler.
Totally,
man. And it's like a spectrum from Lewis Skolnick to Gavin,
Stan Gable. Yeah. So that's totally true. Like if the American Pie characters were in the Revenge of the Nerds world, Oz would hate Jim.
Yeah.
You know, Revenge of the Nerds, instead of this jock, frat boy, toxic masculinity type of thing, instead it could be more compared to the nice guy attitude of thinking
100%.
Women owe you sex because you're nice to them. And through the male gaze of this series, it brings a disturbing like fantasy or like a lie to life.
Yeah, not even just the like thinking, because that is obviously part of the whole like nice guy image. And like, if you don't know what we're talking about, you've probably never interacted with another human.
Yeah, I would say our target audience probably knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, our target audience is probably cringing and being like, fuck,
that was me.
But it's not even just these, because there's a couple of sort of things of the nice guy thing. So one is, like you said, obviously, is the feeling like you're owed sex, that women are just like a slot machine, that if you put in enough nice tokens, sex will just fall out. But it's also the jocks are hogging all the slot machines, and it's like, oh, if I just got my turn, I would win.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I think that's the main thing. That's probably the angle that Revenge of the Nerds go for, is that like, you just need your chance with these,
which is a lie. But in real life, that's a lie. And Revenge of the Nerds, that's the reality they're preaching, and it's a fantasy. It's a nerd fantasy.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Saying in real life that's a lie.
I mean, you shouldn't assume that in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not that you just need your chance. It's just like, just be yourself, and well, unless you're a creepy weirdo, but like, don't. Humans
are complex, and you can't put us all into these boxes.
It's not like you shouldn't be just
So the real world application, or like the worst version of the American Pie archetype, would be someone like Brock Turner. Would you agree? So that was the entitled student athlete who raped an intoxicated woman in 2015. There's a big deal about it because the judge was like, "We can't send him to prison. He has a swimming career ahead of him."
Right. Yeah.
So that's like the extreme version of the American Pie character doing
it's
the
just
worst.
women objects.
Yeah. Whereas the Revenge of the Nerds archetype, like the worst version of that, would be someone like Elliot Rodger, who was the mass murderer who shot up a sorority house at the University of California in 2014 after uploading a manifesto to YouTube, which explained that he wanted to punish women because he couldn't get a girlfriend. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
You can watch. It's so cringy. Like, it's so weird to be embarrassed.
Was he like a director's son? Was that the one?
I don't know. Maybe. No, I didn't look into that. But basically, he put up this manifesto, and it's weird to like.
I'm pretty sure. I think you like one of the Hunger Games directors'
we'll
son.
look into
I remember there was like a mass shooting that where the first person posted a video, and they were related to someone related to the Hunger Games.
But the video, it's weird to like feel cringy for the same way you'd cringe at someone being embarrassing on the street, but to someone who's murdered 6 people, because the video's like, they didn't understand me.
Yeah, no, I have seen that.
I will show them. It's real like, oh my god, this is so cringy.
Is he wearing a fedora?
Probably. I haven't seen that. I've only heard audio from the video.
Right.
But,
yeah. The quote unquote nice guy syndrome is very.
These are these things at their most
problematic.
toxic form.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. But like when it turns to, because, and this is going to sound bad, but like at its most toxic form, the objectification of women is still in a lot of ways putting them on a pedestal, or enjoying women, I guess you'd say, is like, liking the idea of women. Whereas the worst form of the like nice guy one becomes hatred.
Yeah.
And it often stems from self-hatred.
Yeah.
But it's this resentment towards women, and there's some toxic communities you can see on the likes of Reddit.
Yeah.
There's the Red Pill.
Yeah.
Incels, which is gone now.
I only sort of bring this up because I feel like because across the board the Revenge of the Nerds franchise is actually relatively harmless. Like, it's not that bad beyond that scene. It's just that scene is super damaging because
I'd love to like have any of the creators commented on it.
I couldn't find anything, but
I'm sure they have their regrets.
Because I guess what I'm getting at is like Revenge of the Nerds basically says the opposite of what happened to Elliot Rodgers. Like, Revenge of the Nerds promises success, and in real life you aren't promised success in that area. And so what I'm getting at is, even though the rest of the franchise is relatively harmless, this one scene is so bad because there will be impressionable quote unquote nerds watching that movie that could believe what's happening on screen, and that's where we lead into people like Elliot Rodgers in the most extreme examples.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that all comes down to as well, like the whole discussion of how influential are these movies actually. I mean, we did have a big discussion a couple of weeks ago about our most influential films, but that was more about what made you want to become a filmmaker rather than what gave you your worldview on women.
Yeah.
But the first film is kind of just a masturbation fantasy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's everything I've been trying to say.
We talked about it as well, that aside from the initial premise, they don't face any hardships.
The Revenge of the Nerds 2, despite being a whopping 7%er, has way more hardship and conflict than the first film.
The first film is they get kicked out of their house, and then they try to get it, and then they decide they want to get it back, and then they do. Yeah,
and in the first 3 films, they make time for this like oddly sincere like concert where they win everyone's favor. It's not a joke. I think that's what struck me about it, is like to win like the talent show or whatever, then the nerds do like a like Lamar comes out singing Michael Jackson, and they all like Gilbert and Lewis are dressed as Devo and stuff. But it's not a joke. It's like you're supposed to watch this as an audience member in 1984
and be like, this is cool.
Yeah, be like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
And
strange.
they are cool.
Yeah, it is cool, but it doesn't.
The first two are actually genuinely like they've just got a solid beat, and Lamar's such a charismatic character that you can't help but kind of just groove along a little bit.
So, in what may seem like a jarring change of subject, let's continue the franchise. Look, we've said what we wanted to say about the big talking point of this movie. This is just so we can uniform this with the other episodes
I just
of the
want to say
podcast.
as well that obviously the topics we've brought up tonight are very dicey, and a lot of people wouldn't even want to have this conversation with what we just did and state some of the opinions that we've just stated. But please feel free to call me out on anything I've said.
Yeah, me too. Like I always say this to people when I'm talking about this kind of thing, which isn't particularly often, but I always want to like emphasize that like I actually don't know, and if you want to correct me, I welcome that. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I'm trying to be a nice guy. Now, I'm trying to be the best person I can be, and if that involves being called out on things like this, then
no, I mean, if you disagree, like, I mean, we'll do fan feedback. I mean,
franchise.
We're probably not going to have any now, though. I've mentioned it. But I mean, if you agree or disagree with anything, even if I phrased a sentence weirdly, please make note of it, and I would love to hear, because we are in an evolving culture, especially within the last 12 months. It's insane how the difference. But please,
and we're also nerds.
Feel free to educate us.
So, you know, we could be lumped.
We're just a couple of nice guys.
Yeah, just a couple of nice nerds.
Just looking for a nice woman to put on our shelves. That was sarcasm.
So continue the franchise. I'm so fluff. So this is a segment where...
Do you want me to take my shirt off as well?
No, make it worse.
Right, well, since you didn't consent, I won't do it.
The two of us try to come up with ways to continue this franchise. There is more than one movie. Do you want to say? The first one's the only one with that kind of stuff in it. So you got to understand. I can feel like there might be people who'll be like, why are you continuing the franchise if it's so, you know, bad? It's like we've had a three movie buffer between that movie and
the first one actually seems like so long.
Yeah.
So because the other two are just so much. The other three are just so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. So the Revenge of the Nerds franchise has actually been continued on in some pretty creative ways, and it almost feels like Robert Carradine is part of this podcast and was desperately trying to scramble ideas for continue the franchise.
He hosts like a reality show.
Yeah, I'll get to that. Yeah. So firstly, several Lambda fraternities have cropped up in colleges over the years. There are currently 6 chapters in Connecticut, Maryland, New York, and Washington.
Which states are each of those on?
Those other states. A remake of the first film was also... You right?
Yeah, I'm just giving you the donut. Would you like one?
No, I don't. I'm talking. I don't.
Oh, okay, sorry.
A remake of the first film was also attempted in 2006, 2007, and even got as far as filming, but the officials from Emory University, the college they were using for the film, pulled out after reading the script. Isn't that great? I wonder what was in it. The project floundered as it tried to find a big enough backup location. The reportedly disappointing rushes were then shelved and are unlikely to ever see the light of day. I didn't recognise any of these names, but if you're interested, the cast included Adam Brody, Dan Bird.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you recognise?
He's from the OC.
Yeah. I read that, but I don't know who that is. Dan Bird, who's from...
Dan Bird?
Yeah.
What's he from?
I can't remember now. Some show like The Middle or something like that. It's not The Middle, but it's like The Middle. Katie Cassidy, Kristen Cavallari, Jenna Dewan, Chris Marquette, Ryan Pinkston, Efren Ramirez, and Nick Zano.
Efren Ramirez is Pablo and Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, cool. There you go. I wonder who he would have played in the remake. And as you said before, Robert Carradine and Curtis Armstrong also created and hosted a reality game show called King of the Nerds in 2012. And this is the most continue the franchisee, actual continue the franchise I think I've ever heard. The game operated similar to the like elimination challenge shows like Survivor or The Biggest Loser, where teams of real life nerds would compete in various challenges like musical performances and pop culture quizzes to eventually be crowned as the King of the Nerds. The show ran for 3 seasons in the US and was later adapted into a UK series which ran for 1 season.
Any of our American listeners, if you watched it, let us know.
Beyond these examples, Robert Carradine has stated, we had a convention once in Atlanta. We were all sitting around the dinner table, and when we left the restaurant went nuts because the entire group of nerds was leaving. The original nerds, that is. And we all looked at each other and thought, maybe it's time for the next movie. It'll be the final frontier, so keep your fingers crossed out there. So, do you want to go first? What's your continue the franchise?
It's an easy one.
It's a funeral. Fuck.
I didn't even realise it was that again. Now, I'd like to see a 21 Jump Street-esque reboot of this take place. Like, even have it that the original nerds, like the original archetypes, even like the jock fraternity and the nerd fraternity, like ripped straight from the original film but put them in a college today. And so it's like people are just like, that's actually sexual assault. What are you doing? Like, to have wacky 80s hijinks take place in the real world.
Yeah, man.
And have everyone be like, this is so illegal. What are you doing?
A good idea.
And like, yeah, we're going to beat those nerds. It's like,
what are you, fucking 14 years old?
Are you fucking Neanderthal? What are you doing?
I have to study, okay? I'm trying to become a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like it's acting like real people.
Yeah. So, but like have those those caricatures exist alongside real people and like have to go to real classes and then want like start a food fight. It's like, get the fuck out of my lecture hall.
I am 23 years old. Like
I'm up to my balls in debt.
I do not have time for this. That's great, man. What would you call it?
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. I can think of a good title.
So my original idea for my continue the franchise was actually kind of done in the third film, which is kind of a bummer when I got to the third film. So it was sort of like if these stories were to take place, maybe not today, but in the 90s or even the early 2000s, the nerds would kind of already be at the top of the food chain. Like, people like nerds a lot more these days. And because like nerd culture being so dominant as it is, while Revenge of the Nerds 3, while it adopts this premise, it still sympathizes with the nerds because the jocks try to start an uprising to take it back, but the nerds are still like the heroes of the movie. But I would actually rather see like Revenge of the Jocks, where it is the jocks as the main characters trying to take it back. But then I thought, if you're going to make it like slightly more modern, you could go Revenge of the Goths, or Revenge of the Emos, bring it up. But then I thought, you know what it would have been? Maybe we combine these your idea and my idea. Revenge of the Normies. And it's just normal college students. Like,
I think the original idea I actually came up with was more like an Attack of the Jocks thing, where it's just the jocks in today, because like it's cool to be nerdy now.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves Rick and Morty, and
well, I mean, if you're smart enough. Wow, zinger! Haven't heard that one in a couple months.
Yeah. So, but then just have these like 80s movie bullies, try and prank everyone.
Try and throw their weight around in 2018.
Yeah,
and everyone's like, I'm reporting you to the police.
I'm so triggered right now. Yeah. But. Yeah, so do that, or to just put a normal fraternity, like have the 3 fraternity, like do the original film and make it like a period piece, but like a period piece in that it's set in this fictional world that the 80s created. It's not set in the real 80s.
That extends beyond Revenge of the Nerds. That'd have been an interesting film.
Yeah, or just having
today, like
have just like the audience surrogate, put like someone from 2018 into a wacky. Actually, that's kind of the plot of what is it? It's like Teen Beach Party, the
Teen Beach movie.
Yeah, Teen Beach Movie.
The Disney Channel
yeah,
one?
yeah. Do you know, like that's actually about people get transported into
Like
a
Pleasantville.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah, but that's the 90s to the 70s. No, the
Yeah, something
50s. Yeah. I've never seen Pleasantville, but that's my
I've
understanding.
never seen Teen Beach Movie. So.
Neither. The only thing I know about Teen Beach Movie is there's a song in it that was in their commercials for it that goes, I know what boys like girls like me. I know what girls like boys like me. And I was like, that's actually quite catchy. Yeah, I think there's some really good stuff in there to do. Like
Yeah.
it's a
I
great
love
way to comment on the things we've been talking about.
Yeah, I love having people point shit out.
Yeah. How I write my screenplays is I just have a character explain everything, and then you don't even need to show it.
Like, you're joking, but if you ever read anything I've written, that's what it is. It's you have this is insight into Richard's world is you take the real world, put something weird in it, and then only have one character notice it and just have them point it out.
I mean, you're also kind of describing cult pop shit, like our video content. A
Yeah.
lot of it is like that. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can check out said video content on our YouTube channel, where you could actually be listening to this episode. You can also listen to this episode on SoundCloud, where every off week that's not in the franchise, we do an episode that's just a conversation about something else. At the moment, we're doing the Oscar season. So we just did biggest Oscar snubs of all time. We've also done are the Oscars stupid and dumb or cool and sweet.
Prestigious.
And
Next week, we're going to be doing a preview of the 2017, the 2018 Oscars celebrating
the 90th Academy Awards.
Yes. And yeah, so by then we will have seen hopefully every Best Picture nominee. And we will. I've got one left to watch. You've got three. I think Aaron's got three as well. And so, yeah, we're going to watch all those so that we can have a more informed discussion about how we think the Academy Awards are going to play out on the 3rd of March.
Yep. And also, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter
4th of March.
and
4th of
Instagram
March.
as well. Before we go, though, we've got some business we need to attend to.
We do.
We are going to roll a number, and that number's going to correspond to a wee list we've got. And that list will show us what
Show
our
us
next franchise
your way.
is. I'll find the franchises.
I'm
on airplane mode.
While I find this as well, I just want to explain to everyone why I may have been a little bit low energy tonight.
Okay.
I'm real tired. So it's 9:30 at PM, which isn't very late, but you have to understand I got up for work at 5 o'clock this morning, and I've been doing shit all day. But here's the kicker: so I got up for work at 5, but I didn't get to sleep till 10 to 4.
Oh no.
That's my story. Fuck, I'm so excited to go to bed, but because I'm drenched in sweat because it's so humid, I have to go.
I
to
don't have a
first.
shirt on. I can't imagine how damp I'd be if I had a shirt on.
How many? What's our maximum number on the generator?
Okay, the number we need. We've got a list of 307 franchises. The last one, number 307, appropriately, Neverending Story.
How beautiful.
What franchise do you want to get, Richard?
4.
What?
That's,
150.
it was 34.
34 was the number? Okay, we'll go 34.
I hit generate instead of the say it again.
Right. So, 34.
Yeah, what is 34?
Let's guess. What are you hoping it is?
Rocky.
Rocky? I'm going to go for... If it's not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves, Honey, I Blew Up the Baby, I'm quitting this podcast.
Okay.
What was it? 34?
Yeah.
34 is... Oh, interesting. Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile.
What's that? Just
What's 153, the other number you rolled? We're not doing
I
it.
accidentally rolled.
We're like, this is purely to know what we're not doing.
Yeah, sure.
153 is Blues Brothers. So, but we're rags and riches, like two film franchises where the first one is is considered a classic, and the second one,
Was it Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile?
yes.
Yeah, right.
So we're not doing Blues Brothers. So tune in a fortnight for not Blues Brothers, but for Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Fuck, I don't know, dude. You're thinking... No.
I'm thinking of Ant-Man. No, I think that's why it's significant that that Ant-Man?
No, I thought it was because of Cruel Intentions.
Was it? Okay.
Or maybe they're one of those couples that do heaps of films together.
Yeah. And I think Danny DeVito directed Jewel of the Nile. So that'll be fun.
This is a real weird franchise for us.
It is a it's one that felt like it.
They're going to be like fucking 3 hours long.
No, I've seen I think I've seen both of them years and years ago. I think I'm trying to look things up. I have no internet anywhere. Anyway, that's it.
You'll find out next week.
I saw them when I was real young. They're cool. The first one's cool. I remember the first one being cool.
I have no idea what they're about.
They're like your standard Indiana Jones-esque adventure movies. Except the second one is apparently real bad. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Tune in for that next week. That'll be next fortnight. That'll be the first episode that we do in different cities of Film Franchise Fortnights. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, well, this is the end of an era, AJ.
Don't say that.
I almost called you Dave.